Hello, hello, hello. Yes, I am a little bit late, but it was necessary, and I'm going to be here for a little while because I know the title says fixing the artisan background, but I'm going to do a lot more than that. So I'm going to do the artisan background, but I'm going to do a few more as well. I'm going to sit here until I can crunch out as many in the time that I have, and then that means there's less to do later on. That's the whole point, right? I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. Grab some food, some drink. Make sure you are comfortable. We have limited time and far too much to do. Pretty much all the time. But in this case, it's definitely the situation where there's way too much work and not enough time to get it done. Certainly in a live stream, which of course is why a lot of it's being done in the background as well at the same time. Shall we get started? Yes, we will. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And today, specifically, it's Dungeons and Dragons 5e or 5.5 or 6e or whatever the heck it is. It's the 2014 and 2024 version of Dungeons and Dragons, and it's the backgrounds. I think for a lot of people, the backgrounds for 2014 I felt like had I would say essentially one major issue that really needed to be dealt with, that never really got dealt with. And then 2024 created a significant number of bigger issues. So I am going to make an attempt, and I believe I can do it. I felt like I've done it with a custom background. So if I can do it with a custom background, I can probably do it with everything else. That's my theory. And I have done a little bit of work, and I had a look at what they've got there. So I said artisan background. I lie. I'm going to do the ACOLYTE and the artisan today, and if I can get another one done, I'm going to do some more. Now, Fred Huber, hello Fred Huber, patron and moderator. He is right that it will not be easy to fix the backgrounds. I have said that I will fix the classes. I've already started, people. I've already started looking at the 2024 classes. Started last Friday. I will continue to do that this Friday and the Friday after, and then when I'm ready, I will start putting some stuff together in live stream so you can see what I'm up to. Okay, but that's a much longer process. Hello, Pale Rider, how are you? House of Toe, good evening. Hello, Jasper. Jasper's also a patron. Nice to have you. So yes. I'm going to show you what I have. I'm going to work through the process. I'm going to start off today with I'm going to start off with the ACOLYTE because I feel like I can get the ACOLYTE done fairly quickly, and then we'll get into the artisan. So we are going to do the artisan. So hashtag, how would you build the ACOLYTE background for D&D 2024. Okay, that's my question. How would you go about building the ACOLYTE background for 2024? And when I say 2024, I also mean 2014. Just to be clear. Okay, there we go. A drink of water. A lozenge. It is a little bit colder here in New Zealand, so we're in our spring, and often the temperature goes up and it gets wet, but also sometimes goes down because we're close to the South Pole, so we get the southern blasts. And if you haven't figured it out, it's not treating me well. I'm really hoping that I don't get seriously sick before I wind up going on holiday. I really do. It would be good if that didn't happen. Anyway, so we have done the custom backgrounds. I will be following the structure that I built for custom backgrounds and applying it to the various sample backgrounds that you get in the player's handbook. So that means this is actually now draft 2. It is not going to be called custom backgrounds, obviously, as a title, but we'll deal with that in a little bit. It is the 30th of October here in New Zealand. October October. And it's going to be remastered backgrounds for Dungeons & Dragons 2024 and 5e. And we'll do the same here. La 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 la. Okay. So one of the key things that I have done with the backgrounds, the custom one, is I've taken away the ability score improvement that has been applied to 2024. It's an optional thing. It will not be connected to your background, your species, or your class. In fact, you don't even have to use it. Frankly, I don't think it's actually that necessary. But if you decide to, it's not connected to anything. There's no need to. The rules for it are here. Okay? Increase one by 2, one ability score by 2, or increase another one by 1, or you pick 3 different ability scores and increase them all by 1. Nothing goes higher than 20. Very simple, nice and easy. It's what you saw in Tasha's, essentially, in many respects. Next, optional rule 2, the starting feat that the backgrounds were getting. A product of way too many people who already play the game just wanting more shit at level 1 when there's already enough stuff at level 1 and 5e, and they're wanting a feat as a background aspect. Shouldn't be a thing. Shouldn't exist. So I've made it optional. It's not connected in any way. If you decide to do that at level 1, that is up to you as a game master, not something that I'm hard baking into the game. That means that backgrounds are far less about min-maxing and more about what the hell they're supposed to be in the first place, which is about developing background. Next, background characteristics. The trait. You create a flaw, a trait, you create a goal for your character, you create a loyal relationship of some kind. With a group or an individual, doesn't matter. Or individuals, doesn't matter. Skill proficiencies. You get some skill proficiencies. Or it could be languages. Okay. Get 2. And then tool proficiency. So you get to have a tool proficiency of some kind. Yep. Languages. This is where the languages are applied. So you get 2 languages. You get common and one other language of your choice. That's it. I couldn't care less what your species is. Next, background feature. This is the bit where in the original 2014 version of the background, there wasn't really enough work done. It was very narrative. They often felt exactly the same. So the concept here is very simple. You get advantage on an ability check that's related to a specific activity that gets approval from the Game Master, or you simply have advantage on a skill or tool that you are proficient with. That's it. It's very, very simple. That mechanically ties the background to, not necessarily to combat in any respect. It's going to be probably related to your background. So it's going to be one of the skills or tools that are part of your background. That's where it really should be. That's the whole concept of this. And that's where it should lie. Now, equipment, they did really good. I think just stipulating you get 50 gold pieces worth of equipment. I've stipulated it can't be armor or weapons. It has to be about stuff that you have or have had before you became an adventurer or a hero or whatever. So that's how we're building it. So here's our Acolyte. Don't worry about this. This is all just stuff that I just sort of copy-pasted to a large extent from a document. So here, ability score improvements. Don't need that anymore. Gone. Feat. The magic initiate feat for an Acolyte. Not necessary. We don't need to give them that. Is an Acolyte really about magic, or is it just about learning? Okay, so now we have essentially a collection of stuff that we have to give to them that would make sense based on the narrative of an Acolyte. And I would say the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we include this line here. So we're going to take this line. I don't care how you build that in your background, but it should be part of the background. It's one of the things that my group, who are mostly power gamers, got very, very upset when they found out it had been removed. In fact, they were pissed. In fact, they were so angry it wasn't funny. And I was really quite shocked It was enough for them to say they would refuse to use the backgrounds for 2024, and they would just keep playing for 2014. Not something I was really expecting. In fact, it was the non-power gamer in our group who was like, does that really matter? The others were like adamant. It's strange how things work out. So we've got that in there. Next, skill proficiency. So we're going to give them 2 skill proficiencies or a language. I am fine with this. I don't think if an acolyte has devoted themselves to a temple or some sort of sacred grove, obviously they perform rituals and they've got some connection to a god or pantheon. Sort of, there might be a priest studying religion. I think all of that sort of suggests that there's not necessarily going to be additional languages involved. But there's definitely an aspect of the priesthood, religion, organized religion, gods, deities, stuff like that. So we want that to be keyed into our skills. So let's make sure we get that right. So they've got here 2, and I had suggested 2, either languages or skills, or a mix. So let's go here, bold. Religion makes sense. I don't know about insight. I'm not completely convinced that insight is the right way to go. What would be a better, out of the 5E skills, specific skills, what would be a skill that would be more appropriate? That's, I guess, the question. I'll have a look in a second. Next, going back to skill proficiencies, we need a tool proficiency. Now, they've given them a tool proficiency. They've gone with calligrapher's supplies. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I think it's possibly because they've kind of treated the acolyte like a scribe. Do you know what I mean? You know how a scribe did a lot of, would write out a lot of books. I guess it's like the monks who used to spend all their days writing out or copying books, doing all that transfer. Maybe that's why they've decided that seemed like a sensible thing to do. I'm not sure that it's necessarily the direction of the acolyte exactly. It may well be that that's probably the closest thing we need, but I think we'll look at that again. So that's fine. And then if we go back up here again, so we've got that. Languages. So we need to have this here. This just needs to be very generic in nature. We're not going to control that aspect, just like the background characteristics. Players should have total control over that aspect of it. They don't need us on their case about it at all. So we will just drop that down, paste it in, languages. So that's cool. Next. Background feature. This is really important, and we probably need to give it I'm just going to go background feature, and I'm going to take this bit here and go copy, and I think almost immediately the first thing that crops to mind is religion. So here, the background feature needs to be, we'll just call ACOLYTE feature. Nice and simple. Not going to select the skill. We're going to stipulate what it is. And I think the proficiency that probably makes the most sense for them to have advantage with is you have advantage with religion, skill checks. I'm going to put question mark here, and the reason being is we may want to make it optional that the ACOLYTE feature gives you advantage related to religion checks or the other skill proficiency you have or the tools that you have. It would be nice as if there was 3 choices. I feel like 3 choices is not a lot of choices to make with the background, since really the backgrounds don't give you a lot of choices. You're really just told what you're going to get. I mean, you get to choose a language, yes, but you were usually going to have to choose a language, whether it was attached to backgrounds or species or anything else. It didn't really matter. Creating the background characteristics around your character, I mean, a lot of the time those things can be developed later on. They don't necessarily have to be done straight away at character creation, by the way. So I think we'll do it this way, but possibly make it open to 2 other things as well. I think that would be quite reasonable. So that's nice and simple. And then we're going to get into equipment. Now, equipment, we've got 50 gold, and I did have a look at what they had put down as sort of what you have. And this may well be the smartest route, but we have to solve this problem here to figure out whether that is what their kit is. I have added in a couple of other things in brackets here, primarily because of sort of the nature of, being a religious figure or having a religious background. Incense, in the past, I believe the Acolyte had 5 sticks of incense, they had a vestment, a set of common clothes, a pouch. These things weren't necessarily tied to this. I'll make it clear I don't have all the information on the 2024 backgrounds. Quite deliberate on my part. One, so that I don't wind up just duplicating what they've done exactly. It'll be similar, but it won't be exact. Okay. So our first problem. Now, for those of you who are wondering why I'm designing the Acolyte feature this way, and I'll be doing the same sort of approach with all the backgrounds, is actually it's the approach of Shadow Dark. The approach being that, most of the time you don't have to if you don't have to make a dice roll, and it's basic information, you just know it. But if you do have to make a dice roll, you get advantage on that dice roll. And it's essentially come directly from this book, because it's a nice, clean way. I'd thought about it before. It just confirmed it to me when I saw it in Shadow Dark. I've been floating around. I mean, for those of you who've been following my channel, you know that I've been thinking about it a lot over the years, about how to tidy up the background feature. I think this is the smartest and cleanest way to make it happen. So anyway, let's have a look at the skills. And I'm going to come back to the chat in a second to see what you guys have, because there's a couple of things we need to sort out. We need to decide what are the final 2 skills that they're going to get proficiencies for the Acolyte. What is the tool proficiency going to be for the Acolyte? And what gear are they going to have that is going to come to 50 gold pieces? Those are the things we need to address, right? So, looking through my book here, let's find the skills. I believe it's under... Am I in the right place? I think I am. I think I am. Maybe I'm not. Isn't it? I'm sure all the skills are under ability scores, aren't they? It's been a little while since I looked at this book. You'd think that oh dear. Part of the problem is I haven't been using it as much as I used to. So 173. I've been using parts of it, but not all of it. Here we go. I was correct. It's here. So, Acolyte. Athletics. No. Acrobatics. No. Sleight of hand. Absolutely not. Stealth. No. Arcana. I don't know. Iffy on that one. It could be, I suppose. History. History sounds much more sensible, actually. When I think about an Acolyte, I feel like they're more historians. So around religion and history, I feel like that would be much more sensible to include that. Insight doesn't feel acolyte-y to me. I feel like history would be much more sensible. I like that one, history. Come on, people, have an opinion. You're here, you might as well. Investigation. No, I don't think so. Nature? No. I feel like history's, but religion, obviously. Animal handling? No, not really. Insight? It's out of left field. I don't know why we've got insight there. I guess because they didn't want to give you 2 different knowledges. Why does that matter? Who gives a shit? Anyway, medicine. Medicine? Does anybody ever use medicine in 5e? Heck, I even forgot that it even existed. Medicine, it's in the book. There it is. Should it be medicine? History or medicine? Well, you're a priest. It kind of feels... You're not really a doctor, though, are you? It could be medicine, I guess. Did anybody even remember that medicine was a thing? I'd forgotten. Perception? No, I don't think so. Not necessarily. Survival? Is an acolyte priest? No, not really. Deception? Absolutely not. And if you have a dim view of organized religion and you think deception is definitely what they should get, I'm going to leave that to you. But I'm not getting involved. Intimidation, I don't really want to do that. Performance, I could potentially see performance, but not all acolytes are necessarily going to be good at being speakers. Persuasion, I'm leaning more towards history and religion, but I suppose we could consider persuasion. I just feel like if you're going to be a learned individual, you're probably going to be required to study and understand the various religious aspects, and history is going to be a huge aspect of that as well. Performance, persuasion, I can see. Performance is kind of, I suppose maybe. And then there's what's the other one here? Medicine, that I'd forgotten even existed in the list of skills, unless it's an error. Am I blind? Is it possible that maybe I'm just blind? Okay, no, it seems to be working. I suppose those could be potentially as well. I still feel like history and religion are the strongest aspects. Okay, so now we need to go back to gear and look at what tools are probably the most appropriate for an acolyte. Well, we have alchemist supplies, no. Brewer's supplies, no. Yeah, that's more of a side hobby. There were a lot of monks that did a lot of brewing. Calligrapher's supplies, because they have to do a lot of reading and writing. I think that's probably why they've gone with that. Carpenter's tools, not really. Cartographer's tools is map making. And they did a lot of map making as well. Maybe we can go, we could go cartographer's tools if we made it, can we make it a choice? No, I think calligrapher's supplies is probably the most appropriate so far. Cobbler, that's for shoes. Cooking utensils, that's really, no, probably not. I think glass blowing tools, jewelers, leatherworking, mason, painters, potter, smith, tinker, weaver, woodcarver. Disguise kit, forgery kit, I don't think any of those are appropriate at all. Game sets don't really make any sense. Musical instruments, I suppose you could say yes. Navigation tools, poisonous kits, not appropriate. Thieves tools, no, I don't think. And then vehicles, I think this is probably the best choice out of all of them. So let's go to chat, see what you guys have to say. And I'm going to have to lock down. Let's remember, this is the first draft. Okay, it may well change, and it might be that I will wind up changing because I decide it needed to change, or we'll play test it and decide it has to change because when we put it through play testing, it doesn't fit. It's quite possible. Hello, how are you? Return of the background feature. Yes. I am heavily leaning into the idea that advantage is the key mechanic that the background feature should have. It is not a mistake. It's quite deliberate on my part. The more and more I thought about it, the more and more I have really sort of understood that this is probably where we need to sit. Because the problem with feats is they're kind of like a superpower. And a background should be what's taking place before you become the superhero. Or an adventurer or an explorer. We're going too far. And I know the reason for it is because it will sell more books if you give them more feats. Then players like that, so the players will buy the thing. but it doesn't mean that your game master will be very happy. I think what people who are using the 2024 rules have said is they ignore all of the various samples of the backgrounds that are offered, and they just use the custom rules and just let people put the feet wherever they and whatever origin feet they want, pick that, and then when it comes to ability score improvements, they just let them do whatever the heck they want. 2 and 1 and 1 and another. Like they're just opening it up because they're no good. We are doing the Artisan. Don't worry, we are doing the Artisan. We're going to probably get through about 3 or 4 today. Not allow them to make items so easy nor with much power. Yeah. Was take away from the PCs. The Acolyte, yeah, I feel like the Acolyte's not too bad. You did not misread, Fred Huber, you did not misread the title or the thumbnail. I am doing the Artisan. But since Acolyte starts with an A, we're going to do that as well. I'm doing both. Prep, Cook and Survive, hello, how are you? Hello, Jasper. Jasper's also a patron. Nice to have you. Okay, and House of Toe, how are you? Okay, let's lock down some stuff. And let's then move on, because otherwise we'll be here too long, and it's time to do the Artisan as well today. So we're doing that. So why have I put this in yellow? Because I'll probably change this. In fact, I will probably get Mr. Wally DM to change it. This project is in conjunction with Wally DM, for those of you who are wondering. I'm going to go with history and religion. I think those are the strongest aspects of skills that make sense. I think they are correct that calligrapher's supplies is the tool proficiency that makes the most sense for this, so we're going to keep that. We're going to go into here, so you get to choose A or B. I don't have a problem with going with the choose the A or B thing, so let's go there. And then if we've only got, so calligrapher's supplies is 50 GP, which is a big chunk of money, but it's not a huge chunk of money either. So let's go with that is definitely an in, because we've said that that is all right. A prayer book. I think a prayer book makes sense, so we'll go prayer book, and get rid of the bracket here. I need a pen, because I've got to do some calculating. Do I have a piece of paper close by? Yes, I do. Okay, that's what I want. Got a bit of paper there. So calligrapher supplies is 10 gold, and I've got 50 to play with. Calligrapher supplies. And then a holy symbol. Does anybody remember how much a holy symbol is? Where is it? Holy symbol on page 150. Holy symbol, where are you? Holy symbol. Here we go. Holy symbols, 5 GP. Holy symbol, well, that makes sense. We need to have a holy symbol. That's 5 GP. We only spent 15 so far. That's hardly anything. A prayer book, I think it would just say book. We just need to find the price of a book. Where's a book? A book is 25 gold pieces. So your prayer book is quite expensive. Oh, I'm all right with that. That gets rid of some of that money. Prayer book. So 25, that's 30, that's 40. So I've got 10 left. Parchment, 10 sheets of parchment. Okay. Well, fine. If you're going to have parchment, you better have something to write with. Where's the ink as well? Parchment. There's not much point having parchment if you don't have the other things as well. Parchment, where are you? Paper sheets, 2 silver. Well, we could have 5 pieces of parchment sheets. Oh, okay. 1 silver, 2 silvers, 1 sheet. Parchment. So you could have 10. 1 silver, that's 1 gold. That's hardly anything. So 10 parchment sheets. Parchment. Make that 10. That's 1. Still got 9 gold left. We need to have some sort of robe to wear. I think that's sensible. Let's include the robe as well. Where are our robes? Robes, here we go. Robes are listed as 1 gold. Robes. 1 gold for robes, which gives us 8 gold. So we've got a little bit more. I think we ditch some of that money and we put it into something else. Let's get rid of the common clothes. Since we've got robes, you're wearing something. And I think including common clothes as gear is probably unnecessary. Vestments, pouch, 5 sticks of incense. I don't know. I think it's almost a... Is incense even on here? It probably isn't. Incense. I don't see anything that sort of suggests that. Oh, here we go. An ink bottle. I think we should add ink bottle. If you're going to have parchment, you're going to write on the parchment. You can't do that unless you have an ink bottle. So let's give them an ink bottle, because there is an ink bottle here. And there's an ink pen. So ink bottle. Ink bottle. So the ink bottle comes to 5 gold. Okay. That gives us 3 gold left, and then we need to have something to write with if there's going to be any kind of writing going on. So the ink pen will only... They're 2 copper. They're like nothing. So let's just say 1 ink pen. Or do we want to make it a quill? It's probably a quill, isn't it? Do we have quills? Ink pen is probably what they're referring to anyway. Let's just check. Quiver. No, they're using ink pen as a... Okay, that's fine. So we'll use ink pen. Got the robes. Got that. Incense is probably a... I don't think it's here. I don't think we need to worry about including that in terms of things that... But let's add it in as a thing that you get. 5 sticks of incense. A vestment. Well, you've got robe, investment. It feels like it's the same. Let's add the pouch, though. I think we could add pouch and it'd be fine. Something to carry stuff in. Pouch. And really, how much is a pouch? It's not very much, is it? I'm pretty sure it's pretty cheap. Pouch. 1 gold for pouch. And that'll probably leave them with maybe 2 gold, roughly. Well, if you say that's the sticks of incense, I don't think they're really going to be worth very much anyway, so I don't know. Let's just say 2 gold. Close enough. There we go. And then we need to bring that up since we've got the feature, and after that we have the gear. So the gear should be the next one up. Okay, so okay, so that's fine. And really, choosing option A is just sort of trying to do it, make it faster for you in terms of your selection. I think this is probably the most sensible combination out of all of them. But yeah, I mean, there might be some variation amongst that. I think it's pretty close. Anyway, that is the ACOLYTE. And I think we can move into the ARTISAN in a second. But before we do that, let's just see what people have to say in the chat. And then we better crack on to the next one. Here we go. Yes, prayer book. So we got it. Yeah, so prayer book is basically, yeah, your songs. Absolutely. Sponaga? What does sponaga mean? Is sponaga something that I'm probably unaware of what a sponaga is. I've got no idea what a sponaga is. Never heard of it. Sponaga, define. What is that? Sponge. Why would you need a sponge? Do they sponge bath themselves wherever they go or something? I'm not too sure about that one. Thanks for that, Prepare Cook. Survive. I'm confused. Well done, you have confused me. Okay, make them by ink and quill. Give them parchment. Sounds fun. No, I'm going to just include the ink and the quill. It's a part of the deal, so I don't have to figure it out. Oh, right. There's a pen. You're right. There is. There should be pens in the calligraphy supplies. And the calligraphy supplies would also have the ink, which is why you don't... Yeah. No, I get that. That makes sense. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's good. So the ink bottle takes off 5. That means there's a little bit of money left over to buy other bits and pieces. So we go parchment. So we can actually take out the ink bottle. Does the... I'm just curious. Does the... calligrapher's supplies actually state what's in the calligrapher's supplies? It probably doesn't. Does it normally? Where are you? Calligrapher's supplies? Climber's kit? I suppose it's... I mean, I'm hoping it's in the new book, because they've got a lot of other things that are spelled out in terms of what you would find within them. But okay, let's take those out. The ink bottle and the ink pen... That's about 6. So it'll be back to about, let's just say 8. Let's just say 8. Pouch. Is it 8? Yeah, something like that. I'm pretty sure that's correct. That one, yes. That one, yes. That's a no. Don't need that. Keeping this, keeping this. So that is 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. Oh, okay. All right. So it's there. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that sort of locks it down, I believe, based off what you guys have said. I think I've caught up on all of that. Thank you, Prepare, Cook and Survive. Very good point. Is a instrument of penance used by some who practice. That's what they can use their spare gold for. I'm not going to include it. That's a very specific type of acolyte. I'm not going to get involved in that. But thank you for that. That was hilarious. Next, I know a little bit more. So we're going to do the next one. We're going to do the ARTISAN. ARTISAN. So how would you build the ARTISAN background? I was almost tricked. He almost got me to add it in. Oh dear. All right, it's pretty funny though, dude. Yeah, I get the joke. All right. Anyway, so we've done ACOLYTE, which now means we're into the main event, since that is, I feel like, much better. Oh, here we go. This is right. I wanted to fix this, but advantage on religion checks. Okay, so let's... So you have advantage on... Do I say... No, I think it needs to be religion. I don't think the ACOLYTE is going to be more of a specialist in history or calligrapher's tools. I think it should be religion. I think that is... It's clean. It fits narratively much stronger. So you have advantage on religion skill checks. Done. Done. Heck, I mean, I know if we wanted to get too crazy, we could say you could have advantage on all 3 things: history, religion, and calligrapher's supplies. I think that will rock out in the playtest if it winds up being that you never use your ACOLYTE feature enough, and we need to expand it a little bit more. But I think that right now is narratively fits with the background and the nature of the ACOLYTE. So cool, we got that done. So ARTISAN, here we go. I haven't got a description of what an ARTISAN is. Why? I'm getting rid of the ability score improvement. I've talked about this before. The feat, the crafter. No, no. No, it doesn't need to be there. And then what do we need to do here is we need to nail down and try to figure out what is an artisan. And really, an artisan is, I guess, what's the going concept of the artisan? I think in 2014 it was the guild artisan, and the guild artisan was basically a member of a guild. But really, what we're talking about is a skilled crafter of some kind, and that's, I guess, the let's just take the word that's defined here. Let's go into here and do a Google search and just get the definition of it, and I'll drop it in there for now. Paste. Rather than the thing that was at the coast. I work in a skilled trade, especially one that involves making things by hand. Absolutely. That's pretty much what we needed. So let's just do that. And of course, this will obviously get rewritten at some point, but we will just put it in yellow for now. But that gives us a basic idea of what we're working with. Okay. Main event. To be fair, it's all the main event. We need to make sure we get the crux of our background, which is this bit here. Fundamental to any character is how are you going to play it. So let's add this in. Okay, so we do that, and then I believe is the next one, yeah, skills. So we need to bring up skills, your skill proficiencies. An artisan, would an artisan necessarily just, I don't know where they got this idea, it's going to be investigation, persuasion. I can kind of see persuasion. I don't understand why they're thinking investigation. You lost me there, Wizards of the Coast. Would they have languages? I feel like that is a different background, so I don't think that works. So we're going to leave that alone. So let's go through the skills. Oh, we can probably also, with the tool proficiencies, one type of artisan tool, I think that is a no-brainer. I don't think we need to change that. It is completely obvious that it should be that. One kind of artisan tool. And so background, skill, tool proficiency, background, skill, tool proficiency, languages, we'll chuck that in there as well. I'm going to just throw it all together really quickly, okay? And then I'll go back and refine some stuff. Paste. Am I actually showing you, or are you just seeing my face right now? No, you can actually see what I'm doing. Thank God I remembered to go back to the other screen. We need to go artisan feature, and this is going to be a little different, I think. Copy. So let's go here. Let's add this in. And it is going to be artisan feature. Here we go. You have advantage on using your tool proficiency. That's not the word. Okay, you have advantage on using for I think that is a no-brainer. That's probably how it should be built. Rather than based on the skills, it'll be based on the tool itself. Because an artisan makes sense to me. And then artisan feature, and then we're going to do equipment after, which we're just going to do that. So I started slow, I'm moving faster now, I am aware. am I trying to do a lot more than just 1 or 2 in one session? Possibly 3 or 4? Yeah, I am. Okay. So here's the problem again, is the skills. It's like we're going to break down the skills. If we're dealing with somebody who is a trade person, athletics is definitely, I don't feel like athletics is necessarily the thing. It could be, because you could say, well, they have to be physically strong and capable. But is athletics the skill that would be more sensible than investigation? I'm actually inclined to think that it might actually be more suitable athletics, because athletics isn't just like athletics Olympic Games. Athletics is strength based, right? It's physical stuff. So it could be that. Acrobatics, probably not. Sleight of hand is usually for stealing, but actually maybe sleight of hand has a place here. Whenever you attempt an act of larceny or manual trickery, such as planting something, blah, 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 concealing objects. So sleight of hand is really it's very much about sleight of hand. It's not about fine manipulation necessarily, although it could go in that direction. I think we'll leave it alone. I think it's probably not going to help us, so we'll leave that alone. Stealth, probably not if you're an artisan. Arcana, I don't see where Arcana comes into this. History, probably not. Again, you'd probably have skills that are around working with whatever the tool is that you have, right? So I don't know that it's necessarily. Investigation, I guess they're thinking investigation because you have to assess stuff. Sometimes you have to inspect something. Maybe that's why they've gone with investigation. I don't feel like I feel like athletics is probably stronger than investigation. When you look around for clues and making deductions based on the clues, I'm not even sure where persuasion. I don't even know why persuasion's coming into play here. Persuasion makes even less sense. Investigation might make more sense than persuasion, frankly. Okay, all right. So I'm not discounting it. Nature, not necessarily. Religion, again, I don't think so. Animal handling, it would be. I think the problem with that, with animal handling, is it would be very specific. If you were a leather worker, then you might be working with leather and in animals, and that might make more sense. Insight, medicine, again, I don't think any of that sort of works. Perception, I don't think. Survival, no. Deception, intimidation, performance, persuasion. Yeah, okay, so I think out of all of these, we need to approach this with a bit more flexibility. I can see investigation. I can understand where they're going with this. Persuasion, I don't. I feel like athletics is probably much more sensible because you are physically having... It's hard work being a tradesperson. It is physically exhausting. It's why most trades builders and tradespeople have to retire by 50 or 55 and their bodies are worn out. I feel like athletics is probably much more sensible than persuasion. I want to look at the various artisan tools to sort of get a better idea of where they are, how they are thinking about this whole process. So if I can find that, where are we? That's not the one, that's not it. Is it here? Yes, we're in the right direction now. Artisan tools on page... Here we go, artisan tools. An alchemist. So if you're an alchemist and using alchemist supplies, the reality is that you would probably want to specialize in having arcana as a skill proficiency, wouldn't it? If you're a brewer, what is the skill that you're most likely to be looking at? Well, it's probably you're much more, you might actually be looking more at nature, I guess, because you have to know about plants and what you're brewing, whether it's grapes or whatever else. If you're an artisan and you're using calligrapher's supplies, and that's the artisan tool, then you're doing more writing, so that might be around history, it might be around religion. If you're using cartographer's tools, then navigating is probably a factor here, so it would probably mean that nature and investigation would have a heavy part in that. Okay, I think they all lean into investigate. Cobbler's tools, shoes, investigation, athletics, I can see that. Cookers, cooking utensils. So we've either got to say just pick 2 skills proficiencies for this background, or we have to state and be specific about which ones they are. Glass blowers tools, jeweler's tools, leather worker tools, mason tools, well, that's hard work. Painter's supplies, that's still hard work. Depending on the type of painting. You're painting a house, you're painting pictures. Could be either one, right? Pottery tools, smith's tools, tinkerer tools, weaver's tools, woodcarver's tools. Well, that's hard work. So, yeah, I think there's 2 options here for the artisan. Either we just say pick 2 skills that you're proficient in, and let the player decide based on the tool proficiency that they've selected for their artisan what the heck it's going to be. Or we say there are 2 main skills that all artisans need to use. And I would say athletics and investigation are probably those. I do not think persuasion is the one. I guess you might be thinking in terms of that if you are self-employed. I guess it would make sense if you're a cottage industry and you have to sell your product to somebody. But I think athletics and investigation are actually much more sensible. That would be my way of doing it. I'm kind of curious to see what other people have to say. And we will let you chime in. Or just 2 skills. I think that is where we're at with this. I think that's either this and this, or I don't see persuasion really. I feel like this is the other option, is just pick 2 skills and be done with it. Again, backgrounds are supposed to narrow things down a little bit, and this is one of those things where it's actually much more broader. There's much more variation, because artisan, really, you could write a background for every single tool proficiency. So woodcarver would be a background, weaver would be a background, tinkerer, blacksmith, potter, painter, mason. You could have one for every single one of them. I guess what we're trying to do is not do that, because that's sort of just going to take up space. Okay. All right, I thought about it. I'm going to leave it like this for now, and you guys are going to chime in and say what you have to say. I think we lean into the tool that they are proficient with. So you have advantage using your tool proficiency for one ability or skill checks. That's it. Next, what sort of gear and stuff do they get? Well, apparently the artisan has almost nothing. Like, I'm looking at this, and it's really difficult, because here's the thing. You really should state that you have the artisan tool that you would use, and then that's it, and some clothes. And I don't think traveller's clothes are necessarily the one. Common clothes would be fine. We give the common clothes to them for free. Clothes, common clothes for free. Common, is it called clothes common, or yeah, it is common. The other one had a robe. I was saying we didn't need to really worry about common clothes as stipulating that. I'll just put it in. just so you don't go buying clothes later on when you've with your other money. We'll just put common clothes. Common clothes is basically your work clothes, right? It's the clothes you use when you're doing your trade, more than likely. Okay, so next, we need to then stipulate the next thing that you get. Now, the problem with artisan tools, if I remember right, and I do because it's in front of me here now, is that artisan tools can range from 50 gold pieces to much less. So you get common clothes and one artisan tool set, toolkit, tool set, toolkit, and any money left over. Let's keep it really simple. Let's get rid of the travel papers nonsense. And I think that, frankly, is probably the best way to go. Yes, you could have an artisan who travels on the road and goes from one place to another, but more than likely you probably have set yourself up in your own home rather than being a travelling tradesman. Travelling tradesman is a different kettle of fish. Whereas I think it's probably much more common that you have your business in your home. So common clothes, one artisan toolkit, and any money left over, or 50 gold pieces. So basically, yeah, you're getting 50 gold pieces worth of something. We're giving them the clothes for free, and the clothes aren't worth very much. Like the common clothes is 5 silver pieces. Who gives a shit? Done. That's probably the easiest way to deal with equipment. Okay, there's the artisan. Let's go see what Chad has to say. I'm very curious, and we got into the hour. We hit the hour mark, which means we may get another one done. Oh yeah. All right. Pull chain. Occasionally be seriously, mostly. We can catch him. Yes, Fred Huber, you can pull my chain. Many people have. Not let them make magic items high power. There's nothing about an artisan being able to make magic items. None of what we're doing here says anything about making magic items. I'm not getting into that. Sleight of hand. I looked at sleight of hand and I thought really hard about it, but I think it's probably not appropriate. But my first instinct was sleight of hand for sure. Your name always. Son Gray. I was really thinking that maybe a way to go, but the way they've defined sleight of hand, it just feels like it's too much in the last knee area, and probably better to just leave it alone. So I will. But yeah, my first instinct was to consider looking at it. Artisan is often trying to get artificer's abilities as a background. Yeah, but again, like what you can do as an artisan is really defined by what the game master is going to let you do. Investigation, possibly looking up a project commissions you are working on. Yeah, I was thinking about that, but it's also inspecting your work. And I think that's part of why they've put investigation in. Because I can see that connection being a big factor. Since I spent many years building furniture and teaching people how to make furniture, being able to assess and investigate the work that you've done, I guess, inspect it, quality control, that sort of thing, is a big aspect of being an artisan, somebody who makes stuff with your hands. When I was laying bricks, it's a big factor is checking your work and inspecting and, making sure things are in the right place. Athletics and sleight of hand would have potentially been in the area I would have considered. I think you're right about athletics. I think a lot of people underestimate the physical requirements of being an artisan. It is very, very physically demanding. Pick two proficiencies based on your artisan profession that best fits player discretion. That's what you would go with. My instincts tell me that is probably the best way to go. Do you know what actually comes to mind? Is maybe to stipulate one of them, and the problem is there are certain tasks that don't really require a lot of athletics as an artisan tool. I wouldn't say necessarily that you need to be physical. I mean, your fingers need to be strong if you are a leather worker, for example. You need to have strong fingers, but you're not really doing a lot of heavy lifting. If you're a jeweler, fine motor control is not really, you probably still have to have strong fingers again, but you're not dealing with heavy lifting, so maybe athletics has less of an impact on that. Tinkerer, again, might be more fine control, but it might be, prepare, cook, and survive. I honestly think it might be better just to let them just choose the two skills for that one, because it's so broad. We're trying to capture so much. Again, equipment based on profession, player, discretion. Again, I've made that common clothes in your artisan tool and then whatever. So I've made it as broad as possible. So I tend to agree with that one. A certain preacher or tent maker by trade, he went from town to town. Nice. Thanks, Fred. Cleric with a tent maker. Yeah, often used by hand. I think what we do is, I think the instinct is we definitely need to broaden it out. I think we need to just let them pick, because it's too hard to be too narrow when you have such a huge range of skills. Do you know what I mean? So for those of you who don't know, I've done wood carving. Wood carving is hard on your hands, but I wouldn't say it is physically demanding. Chopping down the tree, if you were going to chop down a tree to carve from a tree, a big chunk of wood, that can be physically demanding, because the lifting of the log and cutting down the tree with the chainsaw and so forth, that can be, that can be a bit sweaty. I've never done weaving. Tinkering, people have asked me to do electronics, and don't ask me. Yeah, carpenters can't fucking fix everything. I've done a little bit of metal work, but I haven't done heavy metal work. Pottery, I've done pottery. I wouldn't say that is physically demanding, but it depends on how many you're spitting out, how fast. Painting, well, I've painted houses, but not, so I know that's physically demanding. Mason tools, well, I've done a bit of that as well. Leather work, only when I was a kid. Jewellery, only when I was a kid. Glass, never done that. Cooking, well, I've done some cooking. We all do. Cobbler, I think we need to make it broad. I think it needs to be broad. I think there's no way to get around the fact that the artisan needs to have far more choice about the types of skills, because it's not necessarily about, I guess investigation is probably the most common skill out of all of them. So we could go, I'm not convinced that athletics is the big factor here, but I'm thinking here that probably the one thing that definitely ties them every single time is investigation, because there is an aspect when you're making something of quality control, and investigation is kind of that. And then one other. Investigation and one other skill. Investigation and one other skill related to your tool proficiency. Oopsies. To your artisan tool proficiency. efficiency. There has to be some choice. I just don't see that there being any other way. Let's not worry too much about the fact that I've put in here investigation, haven't put down, just pick two skills. What I don't want artisan to become is well, if I want to just pick more of my own shit, being an artisan means I get to pick more of my own shit. I don't want it to be the go-to where it winds up being the only class anybody ever takes. Because then they get to pick their tool, they get to pick all their skills, they get to pick, a language. It's leaning maybe too far into that, and maybe it becomes too good. Play testing will tell whether it's going to work. But I think narratively, mechanically, I think that's probably the best way to approach it. And equipment-wise, common clothes, one artisan tool, and any money left over. From the artisan tool, because the artisan tools range in price by so much, you could have a lot of other money left over that you can spend. And if you buy the alchemist supplies, you've got no more money left. Like you spent all your money basically on getting your alchemist supplies if you're going to be an alchemist. So over. 50 GP. And that being said, I think this option needs to go. This last one, this B, is unnecessary. It is just option A. That's it. Um, 50 GP limit. Because I'm sure somebody will say, but common clothes are this, and then you got your artisan toolkit, which if I take the alchemist is 50 gold pieces, which means I don't get any clothes. Let's not go there. I know somebody's going to do that. I know somebody's going to say that, so I'm going to write it in here now. I know somebody in my home group will do it. So yeah, there we go. Artisan. Okay, so jeweler extremely fine control. Bench work is designed to help them make no unwanted movements. Yeah, huge for good quality. Yeah, I think investigation is an aspect to all of them is very, very important, which is why I'm going to keep it. Slip into molds. Ceramics is very heavy work. Yes, it can be. Absolutely. Depends on the type of pottery you're doing. Absolutely. If you're doing light, little stuff, if you're using a wheel, it's all different. Used by hand. So again, sleight of hand, the way it's defined, I would like sleight of hand to refer to just being things that require fine dexterity, but I think the concept of sleight of hand is you don't necessarily have to have fine motor control for some of these, being a mason doesn't necessarily require fine motor control all the time. Do you know what I mean? There are a lot of things, like even a carpenter doesn't necessarily have to have fine motor control all the time. I don't think it's necessary, and I think the way they've defined sleight of hand, again, as I said, is too far removed from what you and me want it to mean. And if they're going to make it mean something, I can't force it to mean something else without rewriting all the rules, and I am only doing the background right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave sleight of hand alone. Now, we need to do another background, because it's been an hour. I don't have to go to work yet. I believe we have the charlatan. I believe the charlatan is next on our list. So let's go here. And if I flick on back this way a bit, I should find charlatan. A favourite amongst people. Charlatan. Background. Let's go there. Let's do that. I'm going to be very curious how this all plays out and how people respond to these backgrounds when we put them in front of people. Okay, so we're doing the charlatan. So if I go over to charlatan, Where are we? Charlatan. All right, don't press that button. That would stop the stream. Okay, there we go. Artisan. Down we go to charlatan. So charlatan, we're getting rid of this. Don't need that. That's just an optional rule. It's at the top if you're going to use them. This is the only one that sort of makes sense, but again, why is a charlatan getting more skills than everybody else? Ditch it. Don't need it. And then charlatan, we need to define it because I haven't got a sort of definition of charlatan. We've got what was the coasters put down, but let's keep it simple for now. Let's not let it get in the way. We're not spending our time on that. We're spending our time on the mechanical aspect of it. So, a person falsely claiming to have a special knowledge or skill. Yes. Paste. Just go here. A person who falsely claims to have a special knowledge or skill. Okay, right. There's the beginning of our charlatan. So let's plug in all the aspects that we need. Again, this is a no-brainer, and that is the background characteristics. We're not restricting our players to how they do that. It is up to them. I am not getting involved in that. I don't think Dungeon Master really needs to either. We just need to give them a bit of room to move. Make that character. Okay, and then... whoopsies. Let's do that again. Right, okay, cool. We need to put this in yellow because this is obviously going to have to be readjusted at some point. And it'll be homework for Mr. Woolley. See if he's up his game. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he'll handle it. And then the next thing is it skills? I think it's skills next. Skill proficiencies. Yes, okay, so we need to move our skill proficiencies up for the charlatan. I feel like the skill proficiencies for the charlatan are actually pretty close to where they need to be. I don't think we're going to need to change them. I think they are dead on. Like, yeah. The only thing that I would say potentially with a charlatan is maybe they need to have a few more options with their tool proficiency. Because that's probably an area where there should be a little bit more room for movement. But that's that one. We'll do this for now. And then what was the next one? Skills. And then after skills, it's tool proficiency, then languages. Okay, tool proficiency. Tool proficiencies. Am I actually showing this to you guys? Yes, I am. Thank God for that. I remembered to go back over. I'm going to put it... I'm going to highlight this because I actually think there needs to be a bit more room to move with that. I think that just having forgery kit, although it seems initially to be the way to go, I feel like the charlatan sort of broadly encompasses a lot of different things that they may actually have a different focus rather than necessarily just forgery. There might be another way that they approach this. Next. After that is languages. So we got to go into languages. So we're going to grab our languages. Copy. Take it down. Drop it in. Paste that in. Common language and one language of your choice. Bit of selection going on here. I suppose, look, you know, for those of you who are looking at this and thinking, you know, by giving them choices in their backgrounds, as many choices as we are, why are you even having the background in the first place? And I wouldn't dispute that. But I guess there are some people who need some structure, and this helps them have some structure. I think that's where this goes. Now, the artisan goes to the charlatan. Charlatan feature. We're going to have advantage in something. What will it be? I think the most sensible thing for it to be is in the area which they should be an expert in. And I almost, my instincts tell me that deception overall is the area. Because it's a very general thing. I think that's probably... I guess there might actually be room to suggest that you could select advantage in one of your skills or your tool proficiency. I kind of like that. I kind of like giving people 3 different ways they could get their advantage. Not all the time. They have to choose one of them. Otherwise, we make it really maybe too strong. And during playtesting, we might find it's too weak, and then we can go back the other way. But I kind of like the idea of giving them that choice rather than locking it down like we have done with other things. So the artisan, the charlatan, and then the equipment. I guess, again, I think there should be a little bit more choice with the equipment. I think the forgery kit is too restraining. So, okay, so let's determine what skills make the most sense for the charlatan. Athletics. Probably not. Acrobatics. Probably not. Sleight of hand. Because it seems that the way that they've defined sleight of hand, it feels like it's leaning much more into larceny, and charlatan and larceny kind of married together. So I think the sleight of hand is probably the way to go. Stealth is also potentially an area, but I don't know that it outweighs the likes of deception and sleight of hand. I'll put it in brackets, but I feel like stealth is probably not it. Unless you're a cat burglar, I feel like stealth is probably not the right direction. Next, arcana. Probably not. Doesn't make sense. History, again, I don't think so. Investigation, because remember, they don't actually have any real skills. Their skill is to pretend and fake and pass off that they do have skills when they don't. Investigation, no, I don't think so, no. They're not an inspector. They're not an investigator. They're not a police officer. Nature, religion, no. Animal handling, not really. Insight. I think there can be an argument for insight, but I'm going to give you a little hint, people. I fucking hate insight as a skill. I think it is the piece of shit. So I'm going to ignore it. Medicine, probably not. Perception. There's an argument to say that perception, but again, I don't think it leans heavily enough into the narrative of what the charlatan is. Just like stealth. I think it should not be there, but it's like stealth. It feels like it's trying to do something else. That it's a mixed up background by using stealth or perception. Survival. I guess there could be an argument for survival as well, but I don't think that's the key thing. I think that's just the outcome. Deception, like you say, a person or an individual, instead of a person, because it might not be a person. You may not be human. An individual. Deception just seems like a no-brainer. Intimidation, performance, persuasion. I mean, I think there is a room to say that even persuasion might be a suitable thing, but I'm going to go with deception and sleight of hand. I think they got this one right. I think this is actually spot on. And if I were to take it in any other direction, it'd actually skew it too far away from where it needs to be. I'm sure the rest of you have got your own opinions. By all means, share them. Let's keep going, though. So the next thing that we need to look at is tool proficiencies. I think tool proficiencies is, again, like I said, one of those things where what are the tool proficiencies that a charlatan might employ? And you could say that they could employ any type of tool proficiency, but I think the key ones that they're likely to employ is the disguise kit and the forgery kit. but I don't want to give them tool proficiency in 2 different kits, although that would be my instinct. I feel like the charlatan needs to specialize, so let's give them a choice. Why not? Let's say it can be the disguise kit or the forgery kit, because the forgery kit is one aspect of being a charlatan, whereas the disguise kit is another aspect of being a charlatan. And if we give them 2 tool proficiencies, we run the risk of this wind up being one of those backgrounds where people tend to gravitate towards them, like, you know, when it comes to feats, for example, the feats that people gravitate towards is Sentinel, right? And various other things, so I would not want to do that, but I would like to give them the option to choose, because if I look at all the artisan tools, I don't think makes sense for a charlatan. Disguise kit, forgery kit, could it be any one of these? Gaming sets, I suppose you could say yes, but again, I don't want to do that, because again, they're not a gambler, they're a charlatan. They're pretending to have skills or knowledge that they don't have. And I feel like the other things are much more in line. Herbalist kit is too specific, okay? They might pick one up and pretend later on, but as part of your background, it's probably not going to be that. Musical instruments, no. Navigation tools, poisonous kit. I feel like that's an assassin. If you were making a background and it was an assassin, then maybe you'd have a poisonous kit. So for poisoning people. But the problem with making a background called assassin is you're venturing into the adventurer and superhero mythos or narrative too soon. It needs to be something else. Thieves' tools. Thieves' tools is another one, though. Thieves' tools and charlatan. Well, a charlatan is special knowledge and skills. They're about pretending. Whereas thieves' tools is to allow you to be a thief. If you created a background called thief, then that would make sense to me. Charlatan is still too specific. I can see an argument for thieves' tools, but I feel like the forgery kit and the disguise kit are both much more in line with the concept. Vehicles, no. So I'm going to add in disguise, or forgery kit. You get to choose. I think that's the way to go. I'm pretty happy with that based on the concept. It's only one sentence. One sentence sometimes makes it easier to design around. When you have more than one sentence, it can get a bit mixed up. But this is one of the reasons why when I did a Google search and found the definition of charlatan, so we don't get the messy, muddied up thing that could potentially have occurred. Next, you have advantage using your tool proficiency, and I think this is where I would change it. I don't think it's around the tool. I think for the charlatan, it needs to be very, very specific, and it needs to be around the skill rather than the tool this time. Because the artisan is all about the tool, in my opinion, rather than the skill. And you might say, is there really a definition, a difference? And I suppose that you could say that there isn't. But let's go with, you have advantage on deception checks. I think deception is the one. The general one, deception. That is their specialty. The charlatan. Sleight of hand is just another aspect. It's more in the larceny area rather than the... Yeah. I mean, you could say sleight of hand, stealth, and perception are kind of in the same sort of bracket. You could even say deception and one other, and they could be sleight of hand, stealth, or perception. We could do it that way. But I still feel like having advantage on deception checks is key to having the charlatan work. Can I see a way around that? No. No, I think that's the way to go. I think that is the one that fits the most. And they get a tool proficiency, either disguise or forgery kit as a tool proficiency. So they can kind of specialize to a certain degree. I think that's probably the way to go. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I feel like deception is sort of the thing that holds everything up. I feel like that's almost holding everything up in many respects. Okay, all right, we'll come back to this. I'm going to put this is in yellow because I am not sure about this. I'm very unsure about this actually. Next, let's go and have a look. How am I doing for time? Oh, we're all right so far. So charlatan, we're doing gear now. This is where we need to be a little bit more careful because we've kind of said that they could have a forgery kit or a disguise kit, but both of them are different prices. Oh dear. And I think that might cause a few problems. So, and I want to include the option to have the disguise kit. So let's say disguise kit. Disguise kit or forgery kit. A costume. Why the heck they need to have a costume? If you've got a disguise kit, why do you need a costume? Maybe the disguise kit, what does it just say with instance? A pouch of cosmetics, hair dye, and small props lets you create disguises that change your physical appearance. Proficiency with this kit lets you add your proficiency. Okay, so it's just the sort of the appliances rather than an actual. Okay, all right. So we've got fine clothes, and then we've got a costume. I'm not against the idea of it, frankly, but what I probably need to do is I need to do 2 rundowns of how the gear would look. One with disguise kit, and the disguise kit is 25 gold, so it's a lot more expensive. And then if we're going with a forgery kit instead, it's a bit more cheaper, so that's only 15. Okay, so fine clothes. I'm not against the idea of fine clothes. Fine, 15. Okay, let's keep the fine clothes. That's all right. Fine clothes, 15. So that means with the disguise kit that comes to 30, 40. There's only 10 gold left, and that's fine clothes here. Fine clothes comes to 15. And then we've got a costume. And I mean, what is the price of the costume? Who really knows? I guess what I think the costume they're pricing out at, what would they be pricing out at? It would be pricing out, if there's 15 left, 30, 5 gold. Costume is 5 gold. Probably that's where they're going with this. I can see that if there's 15 gold left. Yeah, so costume, 1 costume. The problem is, if you're into forgery, you wouldn't necessarily need a costume. If you're into disguise kit stuff, then you do. I think the costume is actually less important. It is something that you decide that you have to make a choice about. I don't think we can lock that in, because if you go the way of the forger, you could do just work with fine clothes and you're fine. If you're going with a disguise kit, you might need a costume, but you might be fine to just keep using the fine clothes. I think the costume can actually go. Let's ditch the costume. I don't think we need it. Which means you have a few more options that we can add in, which I like. I think a signet ring would be good, because it adds another element of presenting yourself as something that you're not. And the cheap, 5 gold. Cheap enough. So I'm going to add in signet ring rather than the costume. I think the signet ring is probably more interesting. So we go here, cut, fine clothes, signet ring, paste. I like that better. So I'm going to add that in, signet ring. Signet ring. Ring. It's 5, 5. So that comes to a grand total of, so 5 gold on that one left, and 30, 15 on that one left. Okay, alright, so we can forget this because we have two. Unless I build the two options separately, I could do that. I might have to go A and B and have separate kits. That would work a lot easier. That would be much easier to figure out. Significantly easier, actually. I think that's probably the way to go, is to have two options, and yeah, that's definitely, I think, much more sensible. I am not necessarily convinced that having weighted dice or decks of cards that are marked necessarily, because that used to be in the old one. Having gaming sets and so forth might be something that you are into if you are a charlatan, but it might not. I think the things that we have are, yeah, okay, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to take this and copy it. Copy. You choose A or B, paste. And one is the forgery kit, one is the disguise kit. So let's go with the disguise kit first. Disguise kit, fine clothes, signet ring, and it's going to be less gold, obviously. 5 gold. So I think that's right. Yeah, signet ring. Yep, that's correct. And then B would be the forgery kit option. Fine clothes, signet ring, and I think it's 15 gold, isn't it? 15 gold. Yeah. So a bit of choice. So you've got a little bit of cash left over, and you need money to get people to do stuff. That's the nature of money. So they've got a bit of money to go and spend on other assets if they need to, based on how they build their charlatan. Is it more of a charlatan around forgery or a charlatan around disguising themselves? Yeah. I almost feel like, yeah, I think that's probably the better way to go about doing this. It's not the cleanest way that I can think of, but it's probably the better way to go about doing that. So let's see what people have to say in the chat. I'm kind of curious. For those of you who are wondering from the title, how come we're doing more than one background and not just the artisan? How come we did the ACOLYTE, the artisan, and the charlatan? It's because Fred is 54 and I could die, so I have to get things moving. That's why. Okay. Problem with the sleight of hand for artisan is likely claim stage magician and thieves skills. Yeah. I guess that I think the problem is, as I said, a sleight of hand has been so heavily defined by Wizards of the Coast that it falls outside of the realm of what I was thinking it could be used for. That's not to say that you couldn't do it that way, but I think I would have to rewrite the rules too much to make it work. But anyway, Going to need a disguise or a forge kit. Yes, prepare, cook, and survive. And I think you need to get to choose which way you want to go. Charlatan is all about deception and persuasion. Now, I could see that. Deception and persuasion. I could see that and getting rid of sleight of hand, because sleight of hand feels more like a thief. It's all about tricking somebody else. So you can do deception and persuasion, and then you've got both of those things that you need. Sleight of hand is really about stealing. Yeah, I wouldn't dispute. I think that's actually got some merit, dude. Absolutely. I kind of like that a lot more. Let's I mean, I talked about it before, but I didn't write it down. This is the problem when you're in a live stream, mate, is it things don't quite pan out the way you were expecting. Like, your brain doesn't always catch everything. It's also why this is the first wave of going through it. I will have to go back through all of this again at some point. Fred Huber, I agree. Deception and persuasion are probably the key skills that you would need if you're going to be a charlatan. It's really about the role play. Absolutely. Face the A-team. Even if you lean more towards forgery, I feel like you still have to be able to pass your document off to somebody else and convince them that it is a legitimate document. There's still going to be an interaction. Alfred, prepare, cook, and survive is already gone. Sorry, buddy. I'll see you later. Deception and performance. I could see the performance as well, but I think we're going to go with persuasion. I think that's probably far more leaning more into that. You reckon performance and survival? I don't think survival. Yeah, I know I'm going along, people. Background feature. When you make an ability check with a skill, you can do so with deception. Oh. No, I think I know where you're going with this, and I'm not against the idea. Forgery plus calligraphy set. No, I don't think that's necessary. I think we don't need to do that. I think I like the idea, the background feature. The problem is it is too easy to abuse. I think what the player needs to do is they need to stipulate that when they're doing something that they are using deception, they're doing this in a deceptive way so that they are using the deception skill. I can see where this might be coming from, where you might be dealing with a game master who says, well, what you're trying to do isn't really deception, it is this skill, so you'll have to use this skill instead. And I think that is more a process of how a game master, so I know what this is trying to do, and I can see where it might make sense. But if we screw with the game master's ability to make those decisions, they're going to ignore everything that I'll write down, or anybody else writes down anyway. So I think that's probably not the way to go. Ultimately, whatever the skill is that you're using, you're being deceptive about it. So I think, yeah, I think we'll leave it as deception as the key thing for your charlatan feature. It's really all about deception, ultimately. What you have probably done there, I'd have to play test it, but I feel like the way that it's structured is probably strong enough. This might be just a bit far. I can see the players in my group abusing that pretty nicely. But you know, if I ever have to change it, it may wind up going in that direction. It might well go in that direction. There's a lot of stuff in Shadow Dark, for example, that tends to sort of say if you're trying to do a certain thing, you get advantage on that check. It doesn't stipulate what the skill is or the ability check, it just says you get an advantage on that check. And I'm all for that as long as it will work. But yeah, as long as the Dungeon Master believes you are actually being deceptive about doing something, then I think it's going to be the deception skill you're using. Yeah, let's not mess with that. I think persuasion is probably the right one. Because it's all about tricking and falsely claiming, and persuasion and deception. They go hand in hand, don't they? They really, you need both of those. Let's do that. Okay, let's truck on over here. I got rid of the other thing that was there. Sleight of hand is gone. If I ever make a background that doesn't currently exist and it's called the thief or the cat burglar, then they might have perception, stealth, and sleight of hand involved. But right now, I think that's the one. I think that's the structure we go with for now. And then it looks like we might be coming to the criminal at some point. Isn't the criminal already in 2014? I think it is. I know the criminal is pretty popular too as a background, and not just the charlatan. There's a lot of people I know in my group who like playing criminals. Yeah, the criminal. So it looks like we'll be going near that. So I'm going to have to retitle this live stream, aren't I? I am pretty much out of time. I have to go to work. So the next time we come back, we'll either do a class if I'm ready, depending on how much work I've done. Otherwise, we'll go through the criminal, maybe the entertainer and the farmer. And let's keep going. I'm going to tell you now, the guard I am probably going to ditch, and the soldier I'm probably going to ditch as well as backgrounds. I don't really consider them backgrounds. I consider them bullshit. Yeah, that's sort of my headspace with those. So yeah, I don't know about them surviving the process. They might get replaced by something else. Maybe we'll see. But I'm not a huge fan of those backgrounds specifically. Fine clothes, fancy clothes, pretty much the same thing. Okay, so let's end this poll. So for those of you who are hoping to see some rebuilds and readjustments of the backgrounds, that is what I've been doing. This is my first attempt. I'm going to try to make sure I put this up onto Patreon. The 3 that I've done, the ACOLYTE, the ARTISAN, of course, and the CHARLATAN. And then next week, maybe we'll get through another 3. The Merc instead. The problem with the Merc is it's essentially a superhero. The Merc is a soldier, a superhero, which means you're leaning more into the aspects of fighting and combat. And I don't think that's the right way to go with a background. It is just too easy to exploit. It is one of the reasons why a lot of people take those types of backgrounds specifically so they can get more combat stuff. And I don't want backgrounds to be revolving around that. I think the Merc is not necessarily something you start out as. It is something you become. The Merc is level 1 class. It's not before that. So it would be something else completely different. But I could see there being a thief. I could see there being a thief background. That would make a lot of sense, because then we can tailor it a bit more. But I think the street urchin might be more in line with that. Isn't the urchin more like that? They're kind of like a thief, a thief anyway. Okay. So, but anyway, we'll work our way through it. So for those of you who don't know, I might do backgrounds next week. I might not. I'll try to do 3 next week if I do backgrounds. If I don't do backgrounds, it might be a species that we try to tidy up. And I will sprinkle in there classes when I'm feeling more comfortable with showing you what I've done. And we're just going to keep going. And I apologize for some of you who might have got confused by the title, because I should have put in ACOLYTE, ARTISAN, and CHARLATAN. But I didn't know if I was going to get to all of them. I had no idea. So I just wrote down one of them. Anyway, let's get out of here, eh? Hey, thank you for all of your feedback. Don't get too worried about what I've done and thinking, he's done it wrong. Like, everything should be changed and modified for your own game. And, the reality is with everything that we make is, this is a first draft. I expect it to take years to play test this stuff. Not 9 months, not a couple of months, years. Not 1 year, not 2 years. Which means that when it finally does go to print, it'll probably only be digital, and it'll probably get updated. I was talking to Wally and I was like, you know, a lot of the stuff that hasn't been fully play tested needs time to gel. What do we do? And he's like, well, just update it. And I was like, well, the update can be like every 12 months, once a year or something like that. Because I don't want to have to update it too often until we get it where we need it to be. And yeah, that's what we're doing moving forward. I'm going to get out of here. So thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for taking part in the poll. Do you want the backgrounds for Dungeons & Dragons 2024 to be fixed? Undecided 34. Just watching 33. Yes 22. No 11. Out of 9 votes. It's an interesting sort of mix. I absolutely get it. I totally do. So I'm not going to call out all your names, but everybody who was in chat, thank you so much for your feedback and your opinions. You'd be surprised. I might wind up readjusting things. You never know. I'm always surprised how things pan out later on when I start writing things up and putting it onto Patreon. And then when we start play testing and like, somebody mentioned that. It does happen. But anyway, thank you so much for watching and listening. Thanks to all my patrons who support me on Patreon. I do appreciate it. And hey, wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.